Greetings again. This is a follow-up video from the one I made a couple days ago on Minetest. In this video, I'm going to be installing Minetest on an Arch-based Linux server. It'll be the Minetest-server version. One of the things I got to say after going through this is it would probably be simpler if you're not really into command line or setting up servers, just to use either the Windows version server option or set up your Linux with a graphical user interface and use the same option through the Minetest client program. But never wanting to do things the easy way, I went ahead and set up the server. So let's see how it goes. So the first thing I want to do is clone my base Arch install. I have a video on this, so if you want to know how to do the base install, you can look at the video. I'm using Virtualbox here and I'm cloning this VM. So it'll take a few moments. And there we are. Next thing I need to do is set up the settings. I want to check my memory, 4 gigs, UEFI boot, okay. Processors, 4 processors I'm assigning. It's going to be similar to the machine I plan to set this up on permanently. Storage, yes. And I want to set my network up to bridge instead of NAT so I can actually access it from my host to the guest. Now we can go ahead and start the server. Excuse me, the base install. It's not a server yet. It will be. Let's go ahead and expand this. Increase the magnification so we can see it better. There we go. We'll log in as root. If you watched the previous video, you'll know there's 2 users on this, a root and an everyday user. So once we're logged in, first thing we want to do is update the system. So we'll use the pacman with the tac-syu command. Since we're root, we don't need to use sudo. As you may or may not know, Arch is a rolling release and these updates come periodically. There's not one constant update that comes out at certain time periods. It's just when they're available they show up, which is one of the reasons to use Arch, is that it has newer software, specifically the Minetest software. So next thing I want to do is I want to determine my IP address. I need to set this up as, it's on the right network, but it's not set up as static yet. So I need to set it up as static, and NMCLI will be what I use for it. It's wired connection live 1 is the name. Wired connection 1, yeah. You could also use the UNID to do it, but that's a little longer. So we're going to say short, CON, short, then modify, then we'll give the name of the connection. And we're working with IPv4 here, so we want to set up our addresses first. We only have one. Note that your address may be different on your local machine. So don't use my IP address because your local LAN is not my local LAN. Then I want to add the default gateway. And the next thing I got to do is make sure this is a manual connection. In other words, a static IP address, so it'll always be the same on the network. So our method will be manual. This will actually create a file in our etc directory under Network Manager. This file will have our default settings in it. So let's just do a quick check. You don't really have to do this, but if you just want to be sure, you can do it. Yeah, and here's the file with our static IP address information in it. Let's see, next. User add. I said we already had a user, but if you don't have a user, you need an unprivileged user. Mine's RT. It should tell me that it's already there. Yeah. Otherwise, this would be the command you use to add them. And then you want to set the password for that user. Okay. Let's go ahead and download 2 additional programs. One of them will be sudo, so we can give our normal user privileges when he needs it. The other will be openssh, so we can connect remotely. So we want to use we loaded sudo, so we can use the vi sudo command to activate sudo privileges. Some distros use sudo itself, some use wheel. Arch uses the wheel group. We want to make sure we need the password, so we want to make this line active and then save. So now our user RT, we need to put in the wheel group. So we'll use user mod with a -A, capital G, the group wheel, and the username. And when we reboot, this user should have sudo privileges so they can run administrative commands when they need to. And here we can see the wheel group in our group file, and we can see that RT is attached to the wheel group. Next thing we need to do is turn on openssh. So we'll use the system controls part of system D. We'll check the status first, and it is not active, it's disabled. So using system control, we'll enable it. This means it'll start up every time we boot the computer. And then we'll just reboot. And once it's rebooted, we should be able to log in on an OpenS or an SSH client like PuTTy is the one I'm using. There are several out there. I do recommend PuTTy. It's available on all platforms and has a nice GUI. So you can see I've already got my IP address entered here. We'll load this up, and you can control aspects of the terminal here. I want to increase the font size a little. Then we'll go back and save our session, and then we'll go ahead and open it up. We'll get the standard warning that we've never connected here before. You know what you're doing, we assume. We're going to use this key in the future. Just accept, and we're into PuTTy, and we're SSH into our virtual machine. So we'll enter our username and password. Sudo V, this tells us we have sudo access. Didn't give us an error, so yes, we have it. That's good. So now some additional programs. And some of these, well, it's been a journey learning which ones I need and don't need. I'm using unzip. We'll probably won't use that now, but we'll use that in the future. wget. You can use curl or wget. Either one will do the same job. I'm using wget as it has a little better internet connectivity, even though curl has, I think, more features. Screen, if we were going to multiplex, which I was originally planning to do. However, I'm using systemd because that's how Arch installed it, and I didn't really need screen. ManDB will load our manual database, and that means we'll be able to use the Minetest man page to look at some of the commands. That didn't take long. Let's look at our time here. So I'm using time date. It's part of the systemd, and we can see we don't have a time server running. Depending on your situation, you may or may not need to do this. We need the time server because at some point, since Arch is a rolling release, you'll get out of sync with the repositories. You won't be able to load everything. So we're going to go into this file here, and we're going to add NTP servers. Nope, I need to open it with sudo so I can actually edit it since it's not in my home directory. And we're going to add our NTP servers here. We'll add several of them. So just take a moment. I'm using the VI editor. Most people prefer Nano. It's more intuitive. I've been using VI forever, so I think it's actually a Vim running a VI interface. So I keep forgetting to do the insert or a pin key. Okay, let's get this finished. That should be 3, and that should be it. You can save and exit. We want to use the time date C control to actually set NTP to true. Then we want to wait a minute or so and recheck if we have a time sync server going. Again, this is only important for updates really, because if it gets too far out of sync, you won't be able to update. And it is running. Now let's go ahead and install the Minetest-server package. We'll notice it also loads something called Minetest-common, but it doesn't load the client. So as I said, Minetest as loaded uses systemd. So system CLT or CL control status Minetest at, because of the way it uses systemd, you need to have that at sign and then a user, because Minetest is attached to a specific user that was created when we installed it and ran it. And it's disabled, it's not running. Generally, Arch always installs stuff that way and you have to manually turn it on. So let's go ahead and start it. We will want to enable it and then reboot at some point, but we're going to start it right now. And then we'll go to the status, and we've got an error and it didn't start. Let's see. Oh, the minetest.config file looks like it's missing. I would have thought that would have been part of the package. I guess not. Well, let's go check. Let's see, that's in etc directory. And there is no file here, so we're going to use touch, and we need to use sudo since it's in the etc directory. This will basically create an empty file. I'm not sure if we actually need anything in here, but since it didn't install one, I'm assuming we just need a blank file. It just has to be there. And it is. Now, that is, it's there. Let's go back to our home directory. Let's go ahead and go through the command history. The status, we know it's not running. Let's hit start. And then let's do status again. And this time it is running. All right. Let's go to the Minetest program. We'll join. Just enter our IP address. It's going to be port 3000. That's the default port. It's 5.40. And we want to register. So give ourselves a short password. And it looks like we're connecting. Yes, and there we are. Run around a little bit. This is obviously the Minetest sandbox world that comes with it came with the Windows version. I think it's the same world. It looks the same. I mean, a different generation because a different key, but basically the same commands and things. You can see up in the top, it gives us our connection information. That's the upper left. You can see the writing there. Text. So just run around a little bit to make sure everything's working. And it appears to be. I love the sound effects. Running over grass versus running over sand. Okay. Let's go back to our PuTTy session. So I said we need to make this enable so it'll start at boot time. So we're going to use the system control command enable and our Minetest at Minetest, or yeah, and this should enable it so it'll run when we boot the server, or if the server goes down and comes back up, it'll start it again. This doesn't account for it breaking for some other reason. Yeah, and there we are. Okay, we're good to go, I think, with this. This is just a very basic installation of the Minetest-server software. We need to do some more stuff so we can add mods and games and other things, but that'll be covered in the next video. All right, that was it. We got Minetest installed and running on our server. I mean, it's very basic install at this point. I'm going to have to go in the next video, and there will be a next video, is talk about the file structure on a Linux system. Again, this is stuff probably a lot of people don't want to know. They just want to play the game, in which case I recommend using the client and the options there to set up a server. You do need more software, so more stuff installed, more space taken up, more resources used. But with today's modern hardware, that's really not an issue. So next video, I plan on doing an in-depth look at how Minetest is set up on Arch Linux, and how we can add mods and how we can add games and textures and other stuff. So looking forward to that one. I just got to do a little experimentation before I start. So we'll see you then.